The morning after a 14-year-old girl was killed, allegedly by him, the pop star accused of it did a radio interview to promote his album. 2 days later, that album dropped right on schedule. Hold on to that. We're coming back to it. But here's where this story actually starts. September 2025, workers at a tow yard in Hollywood call about a smell coming off an abandoned Tesla. It had been sitting on that block, untouched, for over a month. When officers finally get the front trunk open, they find human remains inside. The car is registered to a 20-year-old pop star who'd gone viral 3 years earlier for a song called Romantic Homicide. David Anthony Burke, the world knows him as D4vd, blew up on TikTok in 2022. He was 17. Romantic Homicide climbed the Billboard charts, the label deal followed, and by 2025 he'd released his debut album, Withered, and was headlining his own tour. It's the kind of internet-to-stardom arc that happens to maybe a handful of teenagers a year now. Celeste Hernandez was from Lake Elsinore, California. Her parents reported her missing multiple times starting in early 2024. She was 13, and police called her a runaway. Here's the part that makes this so much harder to sit with. She wasn't gone the whole time. Neighbors say she came back, was seen in the neighborhood with her parents later that year. Her family has described her simply strong, full of life, a girl who loved to sing and dance. All they've said they want is justice for their daughter. Then, in April 2025, according to prosecutors, she went to Burke's home. She never left. Her remains were identified about a week later. It was Celeste. She would have turned 15 just 1 day before her body was found. According to court filings, Burke was the last person known to have driven that Tesla, July 29th, right before he left for tour. If that timeline holds, the car sat parked on a residential block for over a month before anyone even called it in. At first, this was labeled a death investigation. No suspect named publicly. By mid-November, the Lapt was calling it a murder investigation, and word got out that a grand jury had quietly started hearing evidence. Then, nothing. For months. Just waiting. His tour got cut short. The deluxe edition of his album got shelved, a single day before it was set to release. His label quietly dropped him by the end of the year. On April 16, 2026, almost exactly a year after Celeste is believed to have died, Burke was arrested. 4 days later, prosecutors filed formal charges: first-degree murder with special circumstances, sexual abuse of a child under 14, and mutilating a body. That special circumstances language matters a lot here. It's what puts life without parole, or the death penalty, on the table. Prosecutors allege the relationship with Celeste began when she was 13, and that in April 2025, 2 days before his album dropped, he killed her because she was allegedly about to expose it and end his career. Burke has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys say the evidence will show he didn't cause her death and that they intend to fight this the whole way. I want to say this as plainly as I can, because it matters. Everything you just heard is still an allegation. He has not been convicted of anything. So what's actually behind these allegations, based on the public record? Prosecutors say surveillance footage backs up the timeline. Burke as the last driver, July 29th, days before tour. During one hearing, they also disclosed that investigators had found what they described as a significant amount of child sexual abuse material on his phone. That single detail changed how seriously the public started taking this case. The people around him got pulled in too. His day-to-day manager, who also runs his label and his touring company, spent 3 days in front of the grand jury. According to reports, he was pushed hard on one question: why didn't you call the police? His answer, later reported, was that he didn't feel it was his responsibility and that he'd wanted the tour to keep going. Even Burke's parents and younger brother, who live in Texas, tried to fight the order compelling them to testify in California. A Texas appeals court denied that first attempt. Last I checked, they'd escalated to a higher court and won a temporary stay. So depending on when you're watching this, that fight may already be settled one way or the other. It's now set for July 21st. That's just a couple weeks out from when I'm recording this. Now here's the detail I promised we'd come back to. The one that unsettles me more than any piece of forensic evidence in this case. The morning after Celeste is believed to have died, Burke went home and did that radio interview, promoting the album that would drop 2 days later. And in a separate interview that same week, reporters would later describe him as cool, calm, and collected. Relaxed, walking through his songwriting process, like nothing had happened. I keep coming back to that. If the allegations are true, that kind of composure is genuinely hard to sit with. If they're not true, it's still an eerie coincidence sitting at the center of one of the darkest stories in pop culture right now. A 13-year-old reported missing more than once, allegedly connected to a rising star with an audience full of teenagers. Nobody around either of them stepped in. Not until a car sat decomposing in plain sight for over a month. That's the part that actually stays with me. Not the twist, the distance. How something like this can exist right out in the open, inside an industry built on access to very young fans, for that long, without a single adult stopping to ask a hard question. This case isn't over. The preliminary hearing is later this month, and if it moves forward, a full trial could still be a long way off. Burke maintains his innocence, and legally, that presumption holds until a jury says otherwise. I don't know how this ends, but I'll be following it, and I'll keep you updated as it moves through the courts. If this one's been sitting with you the way it's been sitting with me, tell me your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more cases covered carefully, with actual respect for the people at the center of them, go ahead and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.